Hello and a very warm welcome to today's session brought to you by the Textbook Super Coaching. I hope all of you are doing really well this Wednesday evening. Without further ado, जल्दी से start करते हैं. आज के इस particular session में this is going to be a little relatively briefer session and this is a rejoinder to what we have done yesterday. कल हम लोगों ने basic important concepts को discuss किया था. We were trying to understand that how colonial history, especially when we are talking about the colonized regions, they were basically subjugated histories altogether. They were not given voice. उनको अपनी तरह से misrepresent किया गया था through the knowledge production centers that were completely taken over by the colonizers themselves, and how they through the process of othering made sure that even we started believing that they are superior and we are inferior. आज इस पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक को यहीं से ही हम कंटिन्यू करेंगे. गुड इवनिंग सतेंद्र, डोमिनेटर, सिमर, श्वेता, पद्मा, प्राजिता, हिमांशी, काजल, देवशीष, अंजलि, सोनाली. गुड इवनिंग एवरीबॉडी. देरी नहीं करते हुए फटाफट से लेट्स जस्ट क्विकली गेट स्टार्टेड. आज हम लोग इसी चीज को कंटिन्यू करेंगे एंड आई विल आल्सो बी टॉकिंग अबाउट अ फ्यू इंपॉर्टेंट critics who are associated with the psychological school of thought. और जैसे कि आपको कल की क्लास में भी बताया गया था कि आज हम लोग कल की क्लास में भी और आज की क्लास में भी we are taking certain presentation decks from the classroom program. So what are we looking at? We are looking at the psychological impact. What are we looking at? We are looking at the psychological impact जो post colonial scholars बताते हैं. जरूरी नहीं है कि वो सिर्फ फैनों का ही चीजें हैं, और भी बहुत सारे क्रिटिक्स बोल रहे हैं. गुड इवनिंग साकेत, जामर. गुड इवनिंग एवरीवन. गुड इवनिंग. तो देरी नहीं करते हुए फटाफट से लेट्स जस्ट डाइव इनटू इट. और उससे पहले आज का फ्लो क्या रहने वाला है, आई हैव सम आइस ब्रेकर क्वेश्चंस फॉर ऑल ऑफ यू. आई बी आस्किंग यू सर्टेन आइस ब्रेकर क्वेश्चंस, और ये आइस ब्रेकर क्वेश्चंस आर रिलेटेड टू योर येस्टरडे सेशन. आपका जो कल सेशन हुआ था, अगर आपने उसके नोट्स अच्छी तरह से कंपाइल कर लिए होंगे, जो मैंने आपको बोला था कंपाइल करने के लिए, you will be able to easily ace that particular questionnaire that we are having. Fine. Good evening ethereal. Good evening बच्चे. तो देरी नहीं करते हुए फटाफट से स्टार्ट करते हैं. I hope you've all reviewed, I hope you've all revised, I hope you've all gone over the various concepts that we looked at yesterday. कल काफी सारे concepts हो गए थे. We kind of ended with, remember the terms associated with post-colonialism, like the process of othering, hybridity, mimicry, the double consciousness by W.E.B. Du Bois. हम लोगों ने ये सारे terms भी cover किए थे. तो I hope you've all recollected that and you put that in your notepads as well. तो अब जल्दी से आज के इस आइस ब्रेकर क्वेस्ट को आइस ब्रेकर टेस्ट को लेट्स जस्ट क्विकली गेट स्टार्टेड. ओके, सो दिस इज द सेकंड लेक्चर दैट वी आर हैविंग. आपका पहला लेक्चर कल था. इसके लिंक्स आप टेलीग्राम प्लेटफॉर्म से भी ले लीजिएगा. आप टेलीग्राम प्लेटफॉर्म नीरजा मैम टेक्स्ट बुक इंग्लिश लिटरेचर हसलर्स, तो वहां से भी आप इनके लिंक को ले सकते हैं. ठीक है, चलिए देरी नहीं करते हुए फटाफट से स्टार्ट करते हैं. आज जैसा कि मैंने कहा, सबसे पहले वी विल हैव सर्टेन आइस ब्रेकर क्वेश्चंस. ठीक है, जो कल की क्लास से रिलेटेड है, और उसके बाद मैं आपको तीन इंपॉर्टेंट पोस्ट कॉलोनियल थिंकर्स से इंट्रोड्यूस कराऊंगी. ठीक है, आज हम लोग क्या करेंगे, वी विल बी लुकिंग एट 3 इंपॉर्टेंट पोस्ट कॉलोनियल थिंकर्स. ठीक है, और इसी को ही हम कल कंटिन्यू करेंगे, लेकिन कल का हमारा प्राइमरी फोकस पोस्ट कॉलोनियल लिटरेचर के ऊपर रहेगा. कल का हमारा जो प्राइमरी फोकस है वो पोस्ट कॉलोनियल लिटरेचर. सो कल का क्लास जो है क्रैश कोर्स ऑन पोस्ट कॉलोनियल लिटरेचर पार्ट 1, क्रैश कोर्स ऑन पोस्ट कॉलोनियल लिटरेचर पार्ट 2. तो वो चीज आपके लिए इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाएगी. गुड इवनिंग रवि. ओके, who calls Orientalism to be the source book and who's calling Orientalism? So एक ने तो कहा कि source book है, right? एक ने तो कहा source book है, और दूसरे पर्सन ने क्या कहा था? दूसरे पर्सन ने कहा था that this book inaugurates. So Orientalism के लिए, एडवर्ड साइड की बुक के लिए. So who calls Orientalism as the source book of post-colonialism? किसने बोला था? Post-colonial. Excellent अपराजिता, excellent अपराजिता. अपराजिता ने बिल्कुल सही जवाब. गुड इवनिंग प्रगति. गुड इवनिंग. नहीं नहीं नहीं, who calls एडवर्ड साइड थोड़ी ना. ये हम कैसे गलत कर रहे हैं, ये हम क्यों गलत कर रहे हैं, why are we going wrong with these kind of ऐसे questions? अगर हम गलत करेंगे then तो it's really not good. ओरिएंटलिज्म जो बुक है वो ऑब्वियसली एडवर्ड साइड ने लिखी है, ठीक है, लेकिन किसने कहा था ये सोर्स बुक है पोस्ट कॉलोनियलिज्म की? कल हम लोगों ने कवर भी किया था. स्पिवैक was also associated, remember we said she is also associated along with Ranajit Guha with subaltern studies. गायत्री चक्रवर्ती स्पिवैक calls it and होमी बाबा calls it. मैंने फर्स्ट स्लाइड में ही आपको फर्स्ट चीज लिखवाई थी. एंड होमी बाबा क्या बोलते हैं? होमी बाबा calls it as the inaugurating book. So inaugurating book, the source book all together, ये terms दिए गए हैं. राइट, ये टर्म्स दिए गए हैं, तो ये प्लीज थोड़ा सा बी अ लिटिल केयरफुल. ओके, मेंशन द नेम्स ऑफ वर्क्स व्हिच आर रिटन बाय मिशेल फुको. सो फुको इज अ मेजर सोर्स ऑफ इंस्पिरेशन. व्हाट आर द मेजर वर्क्स दैट आर रिटन बाय फुको? सो मिशेल फुको के हम लोगों ने कल वर्ड्स देखे थे, याद है? मिशेल फुको cannot be categorized into any compartment. You can't really categorize him into any compartment whatsoever. तो वर्क्स ऑफ मिशेल फुको कौन कौन से हैं? Works of excellent dominator Rajneesh. Yes, he is inspired by the Foucauldian idea of knowledge production and Gramscian idea of hegemony. ठीक है, that's absolutely correct. चलिए जल्दी बताइए, और ये कौन है? ये न्यू मार्क्सिस्ट कॉन्सेप्ट्स भी हैं, राइट? ग्रामशी का ये सब क्या है? These are all new Marxist concepts as well. चलिए जल्दी बताइए, what is the correct answer? Very good. Devashish, Birth of Clinic. Aishi Paul, very nice. Madness and Civilization. Future Dreams, Madness and Civilization. Sonali Mishra, Birth of Clinic, excellent. Ayushi Paul, Order of Things, very important. Yes. Devashish, very nice, very good. Knowledge production is not the name of the work, okay, Ravi? Knowledge production is the concept that is given, okay? तो ये थोड़ा सा आप याद रखिएगा. Excellent. Okay. Very good. Very good. Very good. Absolutely right. So ये चीज आपको याद रखना है. A lot of you have missed a couple of them. Like you have missed discipline and punish. आप लोगों ने mention किया है, but you've missed history of sexuality, right? Remember? So here आपको Foucault का पूरा का पूरा Foucault के ऊपर हम एक separate Foucault हो गया, Bakhtin हो गए, right? These are all very important theorists of the 20th century. इनको cover करेंगे हम individually भी. तो फुको के ऊपर तो आप नोट्स बना ही लीजिएगा. इफ यू रिमेंबर, हम लोगों ने कल क्या क्या बोला था? व्हाट ऑल वर्क्स हैड वी स्पोकन अबाउट इन यस्टरडेज सेशन? वी टॉक्ड अबाउट मैडनेस एंड सिविलाइजेशन, बर्थ ऑफ क्लिनिक, ऑर्डर ऑफ थिंग्स, डिसिप्लिन एंड पनिश, हिस्ट्री ऑफ सेक्सुअलिटी. तो फुको एज इट इज, राइट? फुको इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट person that you will definitely have to cover in greater detail, because Foucault से आपके questions जो हैं वो आते भी हैं. Even till date, what are you able to see till date? You are able to see that Foucauldian thought process पे आपके questions होंगे. तो ये please आप थोड़ा सा इसको याद रखिएगा. Okay, please keep that in mind. ये this really becomes very important for all of you to remember. ठीक है, प्लीज इसको थोड़ा सा ध्यान दीजिएगा, एंड प्लीज रिमेंबर इट एज वेल. ओके, what was one of the main concern of Foucault? Foucault का एक बहुत ही important concern क्या था? Foucault का एक बहुत important concern क्या था? He had talked about this as well, that West was controlling what? West was controlling what? जल्दी बताइए, what is the correct answer here? Yes, जल्दी बताइए. Absolutely right. Knowledge production. So that was the main idea that we discussed. जो post-colonialism भी leverage करता है. That is very good. That is absolutely correct. So what had we talked about? One of the main ideas. He also obviously wants you to question. But knowledge production जो है, power and knowledge के बीच में जो correlation है, right? What is he trying to talk about? He's talking about knowledge production. You are also able to see knowledge production आपका हो जाता है. साथ ही साथ में the correlation that is there between power and knowledge, that is another important aspect that you are able to see and look at. ठीक है, तो ये please आप याद रखना. What is one of the main concerns that is there by Michel Foucault? One of the most important concern that is there by Michel Foucault. This is the thing. Now, what is the concept of synchronic essentialism? What is the concept of synchronic essentialism? Remember, आपका post-colonialism क्या है? What is post-colonialism? Post-colonialism is considered to be counter discourse. ये क्या है? It is counter discourse. It is also considered to be anti-essentialism. इसका क्या मतलब हो जाता है? What do we mean by this? What do we mean by counter discourse? What do we mean by anti-essentialism? What is this concept of synchronic essentialism? इसका क्या meaning हो जाता है? जल्दी से बताइए. Yes, excellent, Ravi Pandey. It is also associated with the term that is given by Talal Azad. That's absolutely correct. Talal Azad, absolutely right. Very good, very good. Yes, anybody else would like to answer? What is synchronic essentialism? What is synchronic essentialism? Synchronic essentialism क्या है? So again, just say Ravi Pandey ने बिल्कुल सही कहा. Talal Azad had given it. The Orient is considered to be static. It is not considered to be vibrant and changing. दैट इज द प्रोसेस ऑफ इसेंशियलाइजिंग। आप जब एक चीज को कोडिफाई कर देते हो, आप जब उसकी फिक्स्ड कैटेगरी डिटरमिन कर देते हो, what are you essentially doing? You are trying to engage in synchronic essentialism. You're trying to engage in synchronic essentialism. So you'll have to remember that synchronic essentialism बहुत ज़्यादा important हो जाती है. This is something that you'll have to keep in mind. Okay. What is the key difference between latent and manifest Orientalism? Latent and manifest Orientalism के बीच में क्या major difference है? What is the most important difference between latent and manifest Orientalism? इसमें से कोई भी concept अगर आपका क्लियर नहीं हो रहा है, प्लीज कल के लेक्चर को दोबारा से रिविजिट कीजिए, अच्छी तरह से अपने नोट्स को कंपाइल कीजिए। ये सारे इंपॉर्टेंट स्टेप बाय स्टेप करके इंपॉर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट्स हैं जो आपके फंडामेंटल्स जो पोस्ट कॉलोनियलिज्म से रिलेटेड है उनको बिल्ड करेंगे। ठीक है, तो ये चीज अच्छी तरह से याद रखिएगा। What is the correct answer? What is the key difference between latent and manifest Orientalism? Latent Orientalism जो आप internalize कर लेते हो, that it's become second nature to you. जैसे अगर कोई medicine है तो आप वही खाएंगे जो आप imported है, चाहे वो गंदी ही क्यों ना हो, right? Because you have a bias automatically. Manifested if you are using foreign brands, right? अभी जैसे जब Starbucks को ban करने के लिए लोग people were trying to not use it, especially in the context of the war that is taking place, right? तो ये सारी चीजें, yes, absolutely right Supratim, manifest is when you are trying to use it in the commodities altogether. Okay, so ये चीज आपके main definitions बन जाते हैं. I'll come over here so that all of you are able to review it and ये चीज आपको याद रखनी है because again this is important for your own understanding. ठीक है, okay, now what are three major works that are re-evaluated in culture and imperialism? Edward Said का culture and imperialism, ये तीन important works remember. एक आपका रुडियार्ड किपलिंग का वर्क है, एक आपका जोसेफ कॉनरैड का वर्क है जो ये रीवैल्यूएट कर रहे हैं. सो व्हाट आर द नेम्स ऑफ द वर्क एंड वन इज बाय E.M. फॉस्टर. सो कौन से तीन इंपॉर्टेंट वर्क्स हैं जो रीवैल्यूएट हो रहे हैं व्हेन यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट कल्चर एंड इंपीरियलिज्म? When we are discussing, very good Ravi, Kim is right, Kim is absolutely correct by Rudyard Kipling, very good. Heart of Darkness, excellent. Tithi Das, very good. Conrad ka Heart of Darkness, that is the correct answer. Passage to India, very good. Okay, so these are the three major works that are getting re-evaluated, three important works that are getting re-evaluated amongst other works also that are getting scrutinized. So you have Heart of Darkness, Kim, as well as Passage to India. And what are they trying to talk about? They're trying to talk about that unfortunately, unknowingly, they are also becoming vehicles of Western thought process. ठीक है, तो उसको अच्छी तरह से एनालाइज कर रहे हैं and he's talking about the hidden prejudices that are there. What are three ways of deconstructive reading, ठीक है, which is proposed by postcolonialism? हम disruptive reading, तीन important ways of disrupted reading that is proposed by postcolonialism, that gets proposed by postcolonialism. What are the three important ways that are getting proposed by postcolonialism? चलिए जल्दी बताइए, what is the correct answer? Excellent, Aprajita. Aprajita is on fire today. Aprajita is getting most of the answers right. I'm so proud of her. Absolutely right. Contrapunctual reading, hermeneutics of suspicion, if you remember, and disputational reading. Right? I hope आपको ये तीनों के तीनों on your fingertips हो गए होंगे. Very good, Supratim. Excellent. So, what are the three important ways of deconstruction that you are having? Absolutely right. So, contrapunctual reading is one. Contrapunctual reading is one. Excellent. Second, आपका क्या है? Hermeneutics of suspicion. Hermeneutics of suspicion is coming. Hermeneutics of suspicion is coming. And last but not the least, what is last but not the least that you definitely have to make it a point that you're able to remember? That is disputational reading, right? What is that? That is disputational reading. So these are the three important aspects. These are the three important aspects that you're able to see. So आपका contrapunctual reading हो गया, you are reading against the grain, hermeneutics of suspicion हो गया, that is what we've talked about, and of course your disputational reading process where you're actually favoring the local narratives. तो यहाँ पर एक तरह से post colonialism भी एक तरह से post modern हो रहा है, focusing on petit rectis, that is petite narratives altogether. So you'll have to keep that in mind overall. Okay. Now, can you just tell me who has written the Critique of Postcolonial Reason, 1999? Critique of Postcolonial Reason किसने लिखा है? Who's the writer who's written Critique of Postcolonial Reason? Critique of Postcolonial Reason, ये किसने वर्क लिखा है? Critique of Postcolonial Reason. Who is the writer who's written The Critique of Post-Colonial Reason? Please quickly tell us what is the correct answer. Excellent, Prajakta. I'm so proud of you, Prajakta. I think a big round of applause for her. Today, she's genuinely answered all. आज class में जो हम लोग quiz worksheet कर रहे थे, उसमें, when we were discussing questions like your Azra poems, when we were going back and talking about Matthew Arnold in greater detail. So यहाँ पर I'm so proud because, there Aditya was shining bright along with Naintara and a couple of others. And here what we are able to see is clearly, Prajakta is on fire. Absolutely right. Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak, right? Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak has written Critique of Postcolonial Reason. She's also translating Draupadi. Remember, Draupadi by Mahashweta Devi. Can the Subalterns Speak? This is all the works that she's written. Who has given the concept of double consciousness? ये critical race theory में हम करेंगे भी. Double consciousness का concept किसने दे रखा है? Who has given the concept of double consciousness? Who's the writer who's given the concept of double consciousness? कौन से राइटर ने डबल कॉन्शियसनेस का पूरा आइडिया दे रखा है? Yes, everyone. Who's the writer who's doing that? And who's the writer who's written Foucault's Pendulum? Umberto Eco, right? Foucault's Pendulum is Umberto Eco. WEB Dubai. Very good, Monica. Very good, Devashish. Okay, excellent, excellent. Supratim, Tithi, Devashish, Ayushi, Dominator, Monica, Ravi, Supratim. Everybody has got the right answer. This is W.B. Du Bois, right? W.B. Du Bois, he's saying we not only are having our own consciousness, we're also having what the Britishers or the foreigners would think about us. And this is also called, we are looking at how they are looking at us through via colonial gaze, right? Via colonial gaze. Who gave the concept of mimicry? Mimicry का जो concept है ये किसने दिया है? So when we are talking about hybridity, mimicry, these are also very important concepts in post-colonial literature. So who's the writer who's given the concept of mimicry? ये जो आपका concept of mimicry है, who's the writer who's giving us the concept of mimicry within the context of post-colonialism? Who's the writer? And remember Moon and Sixpence अभी हम class में कर रहे थे. Yes, everyone. What is the correct answer? Excellent. Very good. Very good. Absolutely right. Right. So, Homi K. Baba is trying to talk about how we mimic. Okay. How we are trying to mimic. We are trying to follow. Who's giving you? Okay. Can you tell me the three important writers associated with Black feminism? Three important writers or उनके works that are associated with Black feminism. Black feminism, ये हम लोग देखेंगे भी. We will be talking about it also in the coming days. Black feminism. Three important writers associated with Black feminism. कौन से तीन important writers हैं? For associate Black feminism, Black feminism, Black feminism. ये नहीं आप लोगों ने review नहीं किया है. Remember Kimberly Crenshaw, Alice Walker and Angela Davies. वैसे हम cover करेंगे भी. That means अगर जो थोड़ा सा fast चल जाता है वो हम लोग भूल गए हैं. Right, so Black feminism is another form of feminism. Just like पहले क्या हो रहा था? White Eurocentric upper class women were only fighting for their rights, but people were saying, people of all categories, it needs to be more inclusive, right? It needs to be more inclusive altogether. Fine. अच्छा, अब हम क्या करेंगे? After this particular quiz, we are now going to be looking at three important critics. ठीक है? Three important critics who try to define this counter discourse. Who are trying to define this counter discourse. But before that, I have couple of phrases that are there. Okay, I have a couple of phrases. So when we are talking about Pramod K. Nair's book, which is actually not your original blue, that blue and white color literary theory book, but this is a book called Text to Theory, right? Text to Theory ke andar, how is Pramod K. Nair introducing? Let's just take a look at it because that is a very beautiful explanation of post-colonialism that is given by P.K. Nair. एक बार इसको जल्दी से देखते हैं. So P.K. Nair आपका क्या है? ये lines आती हैं. They are a little distorted over here, but these are lines from the Tempest. Tempest is considered to be a very important work of post-colonial thought. You taught me language and now my profit is I can curse. You taught me language, now I can curse. You brought me close to enlightenment ideas and now I can criticize your ideas. ये कौन बोलता है? If you want to write this, you can write it also. You taught me language and my profit is I can curse. You taught me language. And now what is the profit? I know, right? What is the profit? I know how to curse. That is what I know. I know how to curse. Where are these lines taken from? They're taken from the Tempest, right? Caliban is explaining to Prospero that, how acquiring English has been profitable. At least he's able able to at least he's able to contest about whatever he's saying. All we babus talk English to show off. ये कहाँ की lines है? Rudyard Kipling की Kim. Hari Chandra Mukherjee, in Kim admits that use of English is a class marker, is a status symbol. तो ये यहाँ पर what are we able to see that these are various they're just trying to tell you the thought process, they're just trying to tell you. तो ये किसका example हो जाएगा? What is this going to be an example of? This is going to be an example of latent Orientalism which is there in the mind of Hari Chandra Mukherjee, but when he speaks and he's having books all around him which are actually going to be in English, then that will become manifested Orientalism. ठीक है, तो ये सारी चीजें भी आप अपने आप को क्वेश्चन करके बताइएगा, याद रखिएगा. Divided to the vein, how choose between this Africa and the English tongue I love, right? Derek Walcott, very important. That why do I have to choose because I'm thinking in English? Why do I have to choose? That is becoming problematic. I shouldn't be allowed to choose. I should be able to actually continue. Why am I selecting? Why am I choosing? That becomes a major problem that you're able to look at. Don't write in English. They said English is not your mother tongue. Why? And again, here again, Kamala Das is trying to say, I have my own distortions, I have my own language. तो ये सारे के सारे, be it Tempest, be it Kim, the characters that you are able to see, be it your, Kamala Das talking about it, be it Derek Walcott, all of these people are trying to tell you about the various nuances of colonial legacy, colonial language, उनके implications क्या हैं, ये सारी चीजें ये आपको बताने की कोशिश करते हैं. ठीक है, so please keep that in mind. Role of language in the colonial context. The colonial master's language alienates the colonizers from his or her native culture and language. ठीक है, so again ये process है कि we need to, in order to decolonize ourselves, in order to make sure that we are decolonizing ourselves, we really need to make sure that we are understanding that this is also a tool or a weapon that is used by the colonial masters. ठीक है, तो ये चीज आपको याद रखनी है. Now look at the representation. It's not that India was not represented before we were being colonized. India was getting represented. Let's look at some of these representational remarks that are there. Is the procession of a funeral vow which cruel laws to Indian wives allow. Cruel laws to Indian wives, as if there were no cruel practices that were there in the western part altogether, when fatally their virtue approved cheerful in flames and martyrs of their love. Okay, now Aurangzeb by John Dryden. Here you are able to see that the entire pratha is being mentioned all together. So here how representation of our the so-called of course it was incorrigible. The practice was really horrible to say the least. But what are you able to see that the representation of only the bad things that are taking place in the society, trying to tell that you people are uneducated, you're not enlightened, we will take you to the path of enlightenment. Via us only you can actually pursue this entire journey of going towards enlightenment. ठीक है, तो ये चीज आपकी इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाती है, ये चीज आपने थोड़ा सा याद रखना है. सो अगेन इट इज ट्राइंग टू हाईलाइट, इट इज ट्राइंग टू टेल यू द एंटायर एक्ट. ये सारी चीजें अच्छी तरह से आपको बताने की कोशिश कर रहा है. सो again the way that the westerners are getting represented, the way you are actually trying to represent the west, the east from the western eye, that is becoming important. Okay, so please remember, whenever we are looking at post-colonialism, what is post-colonialism trying to again and again hammer in? Post-colonialism, now look at this picture. Okay, this is the picture called Clemency of Canning. ठीक है, अब इसके अंदर look at these, can you just see torn tattered clothes, master's hand is there, he is happy in his servitude, right? That this is called perfect example of him being hegemonized. This is ruling, he's ruling by consent, right? Absolutely shabby, yet willing to do anything, something that the master says. And look at, automatically there is infantilization of the native. आपने native को बच्चा बना दिया है, as if the native desires your intervention. So clearly this project that you are able to see in beautiful words, in textual theory, like I said at the beginning, these things are being described in greater detail about how post-colonialism tries to highlight, beg your pardon, so sorry, tries to highlight these aspects altogether, tries to showcase that how important it is for us to undo this entire this entire so-called the process of being colonized by the so-called colonizers. We need to actually undo, because अभी भी हमारे mind पे impact जाता है, right? अभी भी हमारे mind पे impact जाता है. Now, when we are talking about Gugiwa Thiong'o is very important. Of course, he says that, right now, like I told you, neo-colonialism का जो concept कल हमने करा था, World Bank जो पूरा का पूरा money लेता है, so that is also something that we talked about. So please remember Gugiwa Thiong'o, decolonizing the mind. He's trying to say, why are you using colonial language? Because it is actually already loaded with prejudices. Okay? Loaded with prejudices. What is loaded with prejudices? Your colonial language. Right? जो आपकी colonizer की language है, what are you able to see? जो आपकी colonizer की language है, that is already loaded with prejudices. We need to remember that. Right? We need to remember that. So please always keep this in mind. Please always remember over here, and this is something which you'll all have to keep in mind, that Gugiwa Thiong'o also says they use the cultural bomb. They annihilated our sense of self. They completely trampled that. They annihilated the belief in their name, the capacities, the heritage altogether. We started disbelieving that even we can do something. Right? It makes them see their past as a wasteland of non-achievement. We are not even being made to think anything has been proud in our glorious history. More importantly, it makes them want to identify themselves with other people. You feel bad about your culture. You don't really want to be associated with it. आप हनीफ कुरैशी का बुद्धा ऑफ सबर्बिया देखिए. So a lot of times the colonized actually starts feeling that yes, it is their fault, yes, they were at fault altogether. That is something that they are actually undergoing, right? That sort of a thought process is something that they are undergoing. ठीक है, तो ये चीज आपको याद रखनी है. This is exactly what Gugiwa Thiong'o is also trying to talk about, that how you feel alienated, how you feel that you have see, यहाँ पर आपको दो तीन चीजें जो याद रखनी है. Colonial alienation, right? Colonial alienation that you are able to see. Now, see, when you talk about colonial alienation, here Gugiwa Thiong'o, because Thiong'o actually said, and this is true, he said that when I would go to a native village वहां पर to speak Gikuyu, so to speak Gikuyu, people were getting fined. और आपने ये देखा है कि काफी सारे इंग्लिश मीडियम स्कूल्स में अगर आप इंग्लिश नहीं बोल रहे हैं, हिंदी बोल रहे हैं, तो you'll have to pay a fine altogether. So that is something which is problematic, right? That is something which becomes a little problematic altogether. Now, talking very quickly, आज जैसा कि मैंने कहा, we'll be having like a very brief class overall. ये तो सारे ideas थे. These were textual references like Aurangzeb, Derek Walcott, Kamla Das, Tempest, जो आपने देखे कि how they are talking about English. Now let us talk about the quick three critics that we are having for today. Reviewing post-colonialism क्या है? What is post-colonialism? It is a counter discourse. ठीक है? What is post-colonialism? Post-colonialism is a counter discourse. It wants to expose the lie that has been perpetuated by the colonizers. It wants to uncover the European text as an act of resistance. So it is a kind of a propaganda literature. It's agit-prop, right? What is this? This is actually agitation propaganda that we are talking about, right? That is what is its protest literature basically. ठीक है? और प्लीज याद रखिएगा, it wants to look at the apparatuses, और apparatus of power क्या है? Use of English, how you're thinking very in a devalued manner about yourself and highly valued manner for the colonized. That is what you're doing. So ये apparatus हो जाता है. ये क्या हो जाता है? ये आपका apparatus हो जाता है. तो ये चीज आपको याद रखनी है, apparatus altogether, the way that they are using. ठीक है? So when we are talking about post-colonialism, what is post-colonialism? Like I said, post-colonialism is basically also helping us with social criticism, right? So it is social criticism. What is it? It is a part of your protest literature. ठीक है, इट इज अ पार्ट ऑफ योर प्रोटेस्ट लिटरेचर, ये भी आपको याद रखना है, ठीक है, ये भी आपको थोड़ा सा ध्यान में रखना है. एंड प्लीज रिमेंबर when we are talking about post-colonialism, there are people like I'm Sesher, there are people like Albert Mimi and Manoni that we'll be talking about very quickly. और उल्टा यहीं से ही हम लोग थोड़ा सा कंटिन्यू करने वाले हैं. लाइक आई टोल्ड यू एट द वेरी बिगिनिंग, आज का क्लास थोड़ा सा ब्रीफ होने वाला है बिकॉज आई जस्ट वांटेड यू टू गेट इंट्रोड्यूस टू दीज थ्री थिंकर्स जिनको हम कल और डिटेल में विल टॉक अबाउट इट. सो ऑफकोर्स ओरिजिन आपका अंपायर राइट्स बैक ऑन ओरिएंटलिज्म जैसी बुक्स के अंदर आपका ओरिजिन ऑफ पोस्ट कलोनियलिज्म है, राइट. बट व्हाट यू हैव टू रिमेंबर, लुक एट राइटर्स लाइक ओ मनोनी, लुक एट राइटर्स लाइक ओ मनोनी, ठीक है. ओ मनोनी जो है, प्रोस्पेरो एंड कैलिबिन, राइट, प्रोस्पेरो एंड कैलिबिन जो है, what are we able to see? This is actually a work that he is writing, and he is talking about the fact that look at the psychological process. The servant, the person who's actually serving starts considering, of course he'll bail, he'll not like it, but he has understood that Calvin has understood that Prospero is my master altogether. So ye cheez aa jati hai, essentializing altogether. And he also says that there are these two important kinds of European civilizations that we are having. What are these two important types of European civilizations that you are able to see? एक तो जो नॉन सिविलाइज्ड है, नॉन सिविलाइजेबल है, क्योंकि देखो यूरोपियन, हाउ आर दे जस्टिफाइंग देयर रूल, हाउ आर दे जस्टिफाइंग द हॉरिबल एटीट्यूड दैट दे आर हैविंग, दे आर जस्टिफाइंग इट बाय सेइंग, राइट, they are justifying it by saying that there are two important classes, one class is civilized, the other is civilizable, but so one class is you can't really civilize them at all. तो ये खुद से ही अपनी थ्योरीज बना रहे हैं, खुद से ही अपने एनालिसिस कर रहे हैं, देन खुद से ही दे आर फॉलोइंग दोज एनालिसिस एज वेल. दैट इज अनदर इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट दैट यू आर एबल टू सी, ठीक है. तो ये चीजें आपको थोड़ी सी ध्यान में रखनी पड़ेंगी. यू विल हैव टू keep a lot of these things in proper mind and perspective when we are looking at discussing post-colonialism, because Omonica, Prospero and Caliban becomes important. And one important thing that they are saying is that the view of the colonizers becomes imposed on us. This view actually becomes imposed on us. We get psychologically completely entrapped by their. Acha, ab yahan par I will be pausing a little bit and I'll quickly explain you this concept. And like I told you at the beginning, we'll be pausing at this particular concept today. He talks about the dependency complex and he talks about what is called as your very important मैंने आपको एक टर्म बताया था, infantilization. The clemency of Clemming के अंदर, राइट, अभी जो पिक्चर मैंने आपको दिखाई थी उसके अंदर क्या है, नेटिव को क्या किया गया है, इन्फेंटिलाइज कर दिया गया है, बचपना दिखाया गया है. एंड देयरफॉर ही इज डिजायरस ऑफ कंट्रोल, देयरफॉर ही इज डिजायरस ऑफ कंट्रोल. तो ये चीज आपको याद रखनी है. व्हाट इज हैपनिंग, ही इज डिजायरस ऑफ कंट्रोल बिकॉज ऑफ दिस रीजन, ठीक है. तो ये पॉइंटर, ये चीजें आपको थोड़ी बहुत ध्यान में रखनी पड़ेंगी. यू विल हैव टू रिमेंबर, यू विल हैव टू कीप दिस इन माइंड दैट साइकोलॉजिकल इम्पैक्ट को भी थिंकर्स लाइक ओमेनोनी, मिनीनी, एल्बर्ट मिनीनी, आई एम सेशर, दे आर टॉकिंग अबाउट इट. I will be pausing over here, right? I will be pausing over here. Rather, we'll be continuing with this particular aspect only. हम लोग इसी एस्पेक्ट से नेक्स्ट क्लास में कंटिन्यू करेंगे. We'll talk about Albert Mimi, we'll talk about Manoni's theories, we'll talk about Gugiwa Thiongo. But एक बार आप थोड़ा सा contextualize कर लीजिए, and whichever book you're following, if you're following Peter Berry, fine, you can read Peter Berry's Postcolonialism. If you're reading any other book, मैंने भी काफी सारी बुक्स आपको टेलीग्राम प्लेटफॉर्म पे भेजी हैं. प्लीज ट्राई रीडिंग फ्रॉम एनी वन ऑफ देम. जस्ट ट्राई एंड रीड as much as possible on postcolonialism and come tomorrow, because कल हम सबसे पहले ये 3 क्रिटिक्स को करेंगे, ठीक है. कल का आपका एजेंडा क्या रहेगा आप ये भी सुन लीजिएगा. कल हम सबसे पहले वी विल बी लुकिंग एट दीज 3 important critics, ठीक है, who are associated with postcolonialism. These 3 important critics who are associated with postcolonialism, the psychological impact of colonialism. Then we will be diving into an exhaustive understanding of post-colonial literatures, ठीक है. हम लोग क्या करेंगे, हम लोग post-colonial literatures, important works one after the other, जो आपके important works हैं उनको देखेंगे, ठीक है, तो प्लीज इंश्योर कीजिएगा, ऑलराइट, प्लीज इंश्योर कीजिएगा दैट ऑल ऑफ यू आर रिव्यूइंग। फॉर इंस्टेंस अगर आप प्रमोद के नायर को यूज कर रहे हैं, आप पीके नायर को यूज कर सकते हैं। पीके नायर की भी कई सारी बुक्स हैं बाय द वे, राइट। ही इज हैविंग नॉट जस्ट क्रिटिकल थ्योरी एंड योर लिटरेरी क्रिटिसिज्म एंड थ्योरी, ही इज आल्सो हैविंग टेक्स्ट टू थ्योरी, राइट। उनकी एक बुक का नाम है टेक्स्ट टू थ्योरी, वो भी आपका एक कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव बुक है। न्यू क्रिटिकल थ्योरी भी उन्होंने लिखा है। सो उनकी काफी सारी बुक्स हैं। सो या पीटर बेरी भी अगर आप यूज कर रहे हो, दैट इज ऑल्सो परफेक्टली फाइन, बट प्लीज मेक श्योर दैट यू रीड, ओके, प्लीज मेक श्योर दैट you read as much as possible on post-colonialism and come tomorrow, because tomorrow we will be starting with post-colonial literature. Fine. Thank you everyone for joining in. Thank you so much, Ravi. Thanks, Ethereal. That's so sweet of you, Ravi. Thanks, Future Dreams. Good night, everyone. Sweet dreams. Please prepare this properly and come and do your homework. Fine. All right, I'll catch up with all of you. Thanks, Rashmi. Thanks, Debashish. Chalo. Thank you, everyone. Take good care of yourselves. I'll catch up with all of you tomorrow. Thanks, Sateendra. Good night. Good night, everyone. Good night, Dominator. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Ravi. Good night. Sweet dreams. Also, when the class gets over at 11:11, हम लोग usually तब class पढ़ रहे होते हैं at 11:11. Do manifest, okay? So 11:11 is considered to be like a good time to manifest. So please do manifest as well. So wait for another 6-7 minutes, and then probably just like manifest the good things in your life at 11:11. Okay? Take care. God bless. Bye. Thank you. Good night, Shabnam, Aprajita, Pragati, Supratim. Good night, everyone. Sweet dreams.